Haha, GM, everyone. It's Iman from Arena Games, and it's great to be here with another edition of our roundtable space. I can see a couple of our speakers are available. Hi, guys. Let's test the mic for a bit.
Hello, hello. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah, loud and clear. Nice to have you. Who is behind the PFP?
Sorry?
Who is behind the PFP at that project?
My name is Anil. I am head of tech.
All right, great to have you here, Anil. If hope I you don't mind repeating your name, so I'll make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Okay. Anil. Anil.
All right, Anil, nice to have you here.
Likewise. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to an exciting conversation. We want to talk about DePIN, and I'm really looking forward to it. All right, who is behind the PFP for Autonomous Network?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is Todd Ruoff. I am the CEO of the Autonomous Network.
Hey,
Glad to be
Todd,
here.
nice to hear from you. You're loud and clear.
Great.
All right, Starlight, over to you.
Hey everyone, it's Max, CEO of Starlight.
All right, Max. Nice to hear from you. It's exciting to have you all here. All right. So today's space is going to be taking a bit of a shift. I can see the rep from Peak is running late, and I'm sure we'll be joining soon. But today's space is going to be taking a bit of a shift from every of our other spaces. In the past week we've had GameFi, NFTs, SocialFi, and a couple of other projects across various niches join our spaces, and to discuss the exciting solutions and what they are building in general. But today's space is going to be centering around like an exciting concept, like has been making a force around the Web3 space for a while now. A couple of people are calling it the buzzwords. DePIN, what's DePIN all about? And I'm sure most of our listeners are familiar with that buzzword DePIN. But in case you haven't heard the word DePIN, DePIN is short for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. And this concept is quite an exciting one that has been making a force for a while around the space. And basically, the idea around DePIN is to connect physical infrastructure with the blockchain technology. And we thought about how better or who better to talk about DePIN rather than the experts themselves, the people actually building infrastructure around DePIN. And we've created the space to have experts talk about DePIN and dive into the concept. Who basically is benefiting from this concept? Who basically do this concept benefit? Who the deep-in economy? Let's talk about the deep-in economy. Let's talk about who is benefiting from it. And I think the space is going to be an exciting one. I'm really looking forward to it. And all right, first and first, I would like us to make a quick introduction about our project and what we're building from each of us. I'll start first from autonomous. Autonomous. Let's hear a brief intro about the project. Let's hear a bit intro about your project, what you're building at Autonomous, and where you are at currently. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. So where we are at currently is the first ever implementation of the subspace protocol. It will be launched in just a couple weeks out of the Swiss Foundation for Subspace. We're a substrate-based layer one blockchain. And what we're building is the foundation layer for what we're calling AI 3.0. It's a very novel consensus with proofs of archival storage where users can pledge just excess or idle hard drive space to the network, and anyone can begin farming on just commodity hardware. You can plot, say, 100 gigabytes in 15 minutes with an average GPU. And what we're encoding on the drive is the actual blockchain itself. So the data is erasure coded across thousands of nodes with a portion of the chain or many replicas if they're a large farmer. And then when a challenge gets posed to the network, the farmers will search their plots, see if they have a solution. So obviously it's probabilistic. The more you plot, the better your chances of winning. We just finished up our last incentivized testnet a few weeks ago. And over the course, we had over 30,000 farmers contributing 150 petabytes of storage on our largest iteration. We'll be launching our mainnet phase 1 in just 2 weeks, which we're very excited about. That will be followed by phase 2 in Q1, which is going to introduce the execution layer, where we're going to have enshrined domains, decentralized compute, which are kind of like roll-ups on Ethereum, but they're native in autonomous. So the offering is AI 3.0. We're calling AI 1 the machine learning era. AI 2 would be generative AI. And the AI 3.0 thesis is centered around this idea of human-centric AI, empowering individuals, control and ownership over your own data. So it's a DSN. It's cost-effective for users who need verifiable permanent storage and compute for AI tasks like agents, federated learning, training, inference, even games. Shout out to Arena if they want to give it a try, or any other verifiable data access. So that's a quick rundown.
Oh, thanks, Todd, for this quick rundown, and it's quite exciting. I heard you speaking about 30K testers on your incentivized testnet. That's a lot. Wow, that's exciting, and congrats to you for that huge feat. I would love to hear more about the gaming aspects that like you just mentioned, but we'll dive deep into it later on. Let's pass the mic to Annie. Annie, over to you.
Okay, thank you, and hello everyone. My name is Anil. I am head of tech of DAS project. So individually, I'm a Web2 based security expert, but past 4 years also I started to contribute security in Web3 space as well. So that is basically first and only even DePIN categorized cybersecurity project. Basically, we are utilizing people unused computing power resources and deliver much more complicated and fast and cost-efficient cybersecurity tests to Web2 and Web3 companies. About the traction, until today, we have reached more than 190 different countries, over 500,000 participants all around the world. And we are also currently in incentivized testnet, so also you can participate our testnet from our website. It's very basic because our main idea and the focus is also incentivizing anyone who participated to DePIN space, because as we all believe, actually DePIN will be the one of the biggest topics in next 10 years. So we have decided to build our infrastructure in this field. And to be honest, we started to this journey when even doesn't the DePIN name doesn't exist, because it's been 3 years and we got very good traction until today. So, by the way, we are also expecting peak into this space because we are natively on built on peak. So it's very good and very attractive space for us as well. And thank you for inviting us.
All right, Anil, thanks for this brief rundown. I really appreciate that. And hey, guys, he just spoke about their incentivized testnet. I believe you would like to participate in it. So just feel free to tap on their icon, go into their profile, and check out what they have ongoing there. All right, Max, over to you at Starlight. Let's hear what Starlight is all about.
Hey again, Starlight is an investment and marketing ecosystem that supports the most promising projects in crypto space. We do the next generation launchpad directly in Telegram, so users can invest without even like tokens or NFTs in top projects. And we mostly known about our like KO platform, where we onboard influencers for the projects, and we really see the potential of like deepin niche in crypto space, and are happy to support projects with user acquisition, user engagement, influencer support, fundraising, and just giving all necessary resources to succeed.
All right, Mark station. And let's dive deep into DePIN now. I believe everyone on this space has a brief idea of DePIN now. Let's leave it for the experts now. And I want to just give a brief rundown on some of the prospect DePIN holds. So when you hear the buzzword DePIN, you would be sure of the fact that we've heard about DeFi, we've heard about DGen, we've heard about GameFi and the likes. And you might be asking, what is this prospect that DePIN is holding? But it would be surprising for you to know that Mesari has run a survey about DePIN, and they are putting this sector at a whopping 3.7 trillion USD by 2028. That's crazy numbers, and it's something that a lot of people might be looking and I'm thinking, what does DePIN get to offer? What does he offer to me as an individual? And that's basically what we are diving deep into in the course of the space. We would like to know how does DePIN benefit the average user? What are the biggest drivers of DePIN, and how do I stand to benefit from it? So I would pass the mic to Anil first. Anil, let's talk about some of the biggest driver behind the growth of DePIN networks today. What do you think are some of the biggest factors propelling the development and adoption of DePIN?
Definitely, definitely. Thank you for giving me a mic. So, I will also would like to explain our approach because the everything about the blockchain is based on community, right? And until today, until RWA, until decentralized physical infrastructure network, actually the community are only users. But with decentralized physical infrastructure network, also community people are becoming the part of this infrastructure. They can contribute their unused computing power resources through their mobile phones, tablets, or desktops. So they are actually being a part of something real. And for example, about us, we are leveraging people unused computing power resources like the other protocols does. And also lots of different protocols offers different solutions. Some protocols offers storage or AI, or we are offering cybersecurity, and anyone can participate as to or other protocol with their CPUs, bandwidth, or storage, and they they are getting incentivized with that way because until today we are very dependent on cloud providers like AWS or Google Cloud or Microsoft services or the other ones as well. But with the DePIN, we can be part of this future promising space with only our computer, or you can buy any specific computers. But lots of protocols like us, we are only expecting downloading our desktop application and contribute with your unused computing power resources. And the first question was yours actually, who gets benefits from in this space? As we believe actually everyone getting some benefits through DePIN infrastructure, because for example when I am watching any actually TV series, also I am not using fully potential of my computer, so I am contributing our partners or the couple projects which I like with my unused RAM or CPU, and I am getting their tokens through my unused computing power resources while I am watching any TV series. And also, companies, actually business companies, getting much more cost efficient and robust solutions from the DePIN solution providers because it's much more cheaper and tons of people actually contributing this infrastructure. So 724 availability exists through DePIN. So and it's also almost zero emission because lots of protocols are recycling this unused computing power resources. It's also actually nature friendly. So as I believe, anyone gets some part of benefits through DePIN solutions, DePIN infrastructure.
All right, and you've made so many vital points, and one of the ones I would like to make emphasis on is the fact that through deepins, we are basically taking the power from a lot of these large corporations and bringing it back to users. And basically, that's the whole idea around blockchain itself, having to take the control, having to take that autonomy from one party or a group of parties and bringing it back to the common users. And I would love to dive deep into to know how a lot of this is going to be implemented in terms of how we could use our computing power individually to get to contribute to the network and also benefit from the network. But let's pass it down to Todd. Todd, let's talk about some of the major drivers in the space today and some of the biggest drivers. What do you think is propelling this concept today, this deepening narrative today? What
Yeah,
do you
I'm going
think?
to build a little bit on what Anil said. It does it. This democratization of infrastructure is really the biggest driver, I think. This crowdsourced infrastructure, as he mentioned, and we're distributing the power and the access, and then also the profits to a broader user base. And this is important because we're doing it across the public rather than a few centralized entities. The incentives are going to the many instead of the few. And in terms of the incentive alignment, we feel that like crypto plus AI plus DePIN solves the problem of how to pay for things like compute and storage in the native token. We're edging, closer to a time where things like ChatGPT are going to be able to write to your disk pretty soon. Agents, they're right on the horizon, and there's going to need to be a way to pay for these resources, and that's going to take real-time trustless settlement, cryptographic identification, ownership, and it just fits right in with what we're building. And in terms of the costs that he mentioned as well, this enables us to offer a breadth of power at scale. We're leveraging existing resources. You don't have to build these large, costly data centers and cooling systems and electrical plants. The resource providers then are going to compete for these rewards, which is going to drive prices down. It's kind of like a pay-as-you-go model. They can pay for exactly what they need. The costs become more gradual and efficient. They also become more predictable and transparent, right? Resource pricing can be driven by tokenomics, and that reduces a lot of uncertainties that centralized providers face with these fluctuating price models. But for us, again, it's mostly AI's rising demand for storage and compute as we move into AI 3.0. We feel it's really perfectly aligned with what DePIN provides with our, permanent verifiable storage solution at scale.
All right, Todd, thanks for this. And I think a lot of this boils down to, in as much as the infrastructure is being developed, a lot of this boils down to the users themselves, how people can start adopting this. So I think it's going to drive me to my next question, and I would like to throw that out to Max at Starlight. I would like to know. I see you guys as Starlight are really big. Are really big on mass user adoption for crypto and Web3 generally. What do you think might be the biggest challenges facing the DP narrative in terms of user adoption? Because it's one thing to have this infrastructure developed; it's another thing to have it have users see the need for it and start adopting it, having to start using it in their day-to-day activities. So what do you think are the biggest challenges that might face this technology or narrative when it comes to user adoption?
Thanks for passing the mic. Basically, there's two main challenges. First is making it super user friendly and easy to use, so general audience can utilize this application and connect with this infrastructure. And the second one is the trust to the system and to this platform that providing this infrastructure. That, for example, one example can be, for example, buying NFT that is connected to some solar panel that generate electricity, and you get profit from it. And you need to understand that you're going to receive this, basically be still be owner of this panel, and that the platform will continuously share the profit with you on monthly basis. So this is two main obstacles. But overall, I think the future for DePIN is looking very promising. And the thing that most fascinates me about it is that DePIN is basically for everyone. You can be the provider of infrastructure, you can use it or you can own it, or invest in it. And there is multiple opportunities what DePIN can be regarding the specific infrastructure that is utilizing the platform. And everyone can find his own connections with DePIN, whether it's cloud computing, energy, storage, or whatever. So I think all these obstacles that I mentioned will be solved, on technical or just social basis. And I think in next year we'll see the boom of this niche, and I think there will be many and more investment coming to the market, incentivizing projects and developers to build even more user-friendly solutions, and making this one of the leading metas in the crypto space for the next year. That's what I think.
All right, thanks, Max, for your quick rundown on things. Also, I would like to push down to the next question, which really directly ties us to this question, which is in terms of user adoption. I think in order for someone to adopt something, in order for someone to see value in it, in order for someone to want to use a technology, he or she has to see value in it, and I think it boils down to how we can make our technology how we can have users make understand our technology and see the value in it. So I think it takes me down to my next question, which is what's in need for the average user who wants to participate in DePIN? And I would like to streamline it to each of our guests today. For in terms of the infrastructure you're building, Todd, what's the need for the average user? What side, or what is the value proposition? What side would you like to show to the users and be like, okay, this is what we are building, and this is what you tend to get from what you're currently
Yeah,
building?
you use the perfect word with side. For us in the storage space, it's really a two-sided marketplace, right? The supply and demand. And the supply is coming from our farmers. And this is just the average user contributing idle storage or compute resources that maybe they're not using. And they can receive incentives through token awards. Again, that democratizes the profits from just providing existing infrastructure and pledging it to the network. And that is in stark contrast to the centralized models where the profits are currently funneled to just, a few major players. The token incentives allow the farmers to monetize these resources, and it's just, based on whatever they can contribute. The flip side of that would be the demand side, and that's our users. And what they're getting is, trustless and permissionless access to permanent, verifiable storage and compute. It's really, data sovereignty, you could say. And, these vast amounts of storage and compute are just available as a public good. And that can be particularly valuable in some of the underrepresented regions where this stuff isn't available. As I mentioned before, they can get it at the scale they need, no matter what the size is. You can only pay for what you're going to use. And of course, they are going to benefit from the reduced costs and the rewards through tokenomics. There's plenty in it for everybody, I think is what we're saying. And everybody who participates is going to benefit in one way or another. It's a lowest cost solution, and it's properly incentivized for the long term, and it's widely available to everyone. So I think those are a few of the big benefits.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thanks, Todd, for that breakdown. And also, I would like to follow up with another question. A lot of our audiences here are gamers, and they would love to hear the aspect of you spoke about in the introduction. You spoke about the gaming aspect and what gamers would tend to benefit. Gaming projects like ours, which is Arena Games, what our gamers would tend to benefit. So I would like you to dive a bit more into that.
Sure.
Thank you.
So what you need for gaming is you need fast access to data. And in many cases, it's a lot of data. As I mentioned, we had about 150 petabytes, and that was just on our test net. At mainnet, we're going to be shooting for exabytes, obviously. And we previously had kind of a focus where we were looking at gaming and metaverse and so forth, just because of the network's ability to just ingest large amounts of data and bloat. And in our future iterations of the protocol, after we launch our execution layer, which is going to be in Q1, we're working on designs for scalability and sharding, where we're going to be pushing the speed up through the 50 megabits mark, which is going to make it very fast. Fast access to large amounts of data is really what gaming is about. And because our execution environment is segregated into these enshrined domains that sit right on top of the network natively, you could have your own domain just for your particular gaming environment. And you would have the ability to transfer assets across domains without the need for a bridge. So the interoperability is really a big thing, in addition to the speed and the storage that's available.
Fast access to data for gamers, which is exciting. I really will be looking forward to exploring this. Also, over to you, Anil. I would like to get your insight into what's in it for the average user in terms of what you're building currently. I can see you guys are into security, cyber security. What's in it for users, and how can they tap into what you're building and benefit from it?
Definitely, definitely. So actually, it's a two-sided coin. The first side is uh, providing direct solutions for individuals. But as we all can understand, cybersecurity and DePIN correlation is it's just brand new topic. So we are also developing some solutions for individual users, average users. But the about the other side of this coin, actually keeping secure every part of blockchain companies such as DeFi or GameFi or Metaverse or RWA. So our main focus is currently providing B2B solutions. For example, Ronin Bridge has been hacked or Mixin Network has been hacked. Until today, almost $18 billion has been lost about to Web3 security issues. So our first step is to cover as much as protocol as we can through our solutions because we are also covering Web2 and Web3 infrastructures, all in the space. So the first idea is to cover every protocol's assets, such as smart contracts, such as web servers, such as even cloud infrastructures, which Running Bridge hacked from. So after we nearly complete our first step, we will also release some individual solutions. I can give a couple brief about that, such as wallet as a service infrastructure, such as secure proxy for everyone. So anyone would be know actually what kind of contract they are interacted in. Yes, there's a couple solutions exist, but these solutions are only powered by centralized infrastructures. But we will take it further with our participants, thanks to our participants. And with that way, people are still incentivizing in these days. They will be incentivized because we are also currently using our participants' resources. But in the near future, after we cover DeFi sector assets, we will also, as I mentioned, release our individual solutions. With that way, anyone will know about what they are doing actually, because lots of people has been scammed in this sector. So they will be ensure about, yes, that project is covering 99.9% of our assets. So it also will bring much more actually community, because lots of people also doesn't aware about blockchain, what we are doing in here, or what blockchain does offer to real life. So with that way, we believe with much more secure blockchain space, much more secure DePIN space, we will keep spreading blockchain all around the world, and we will have much more community with that way. So securing every aspect of this space is actually putting much more effort to evolving into blockchain infrastructure.
All right, Anil, I can see what you guys are providing. It encompasses just what every other this thing needs. It needs what you guys are providing is going to be beneficial to every blockchain and every project currently existing, which is nice because I have looked back and see some of the security challenges most blockchains have faced over the past years. A couple of projects, a couple of ecosystems have lost billions of dollars in terms of which has led to the lack of trust in security system in Web3 generally. I think what you guys are providing is going to be helpful in terms of trying to fix that trust between the users and the projects in terms of security, right, Anya?
Definitely, definitely. And I would like to be an honest because in even Web2 space, uh, security is one of the biggest issues because there is no such as distributed solution providers exist. And we are still hearing about uh, compromising of GDPR related data or individual data or bank related data. So it's still happening in even Web2 space because the security providers only uses their own solutions and their own infrastructural power. Believe we can cover also lack of security issues in Web2 space because especially that project also trying to solve every problem in Web2 kind of infrastructure and Web3 kind of infrastructure as well, such as smart contracts or web servers or even traditional cloud servers as well. So, with that approach, we believe we can cover every aspect of cybersecurity surface which every company has.
Okay, Anil. Unfortunately, I we weren't able to get peak on. I think they are being delayed. But how would you say building on peak has been, and what are some of the reasons why you chose to build on peak?
Definitely, definitely. I also would like to give a little shoot out for them. So, actually, we built this that project previously at other chains, but when we met with Peak team, we see their actually potential about to putting much more effort into DePIN space and the real world outputs. And also, they're actually correlating all the different kind of DePIN projects into one roof. And their approach is like onboarding much more users, which even no one, lots of people uh, doesn't know anything about blockchain, because also we build account abstraction technology for anyone, because sometimes people can be very confused about what's the hot wallet, what's the cold wallet, and how can I interact with decentralized applications. So with that way, we also build account abstraction technology for about building uh, much more bigger community for next years. And also, uh, as I mentioned, actually, about to putting much more efforts and providing outputs to real world is very valuable thing. So with that way, we can be bridge between Web 2 and Web 3 space.
All right, thank you so much, Anil. Over to you, Max. I would like to get some insight into some of the progress you guys have made at Starlight, and currently, where are you guys at? What are some of the short-term and long-term goals you guys are looking at? I believe a lot of our listeners would love to hear that.
Thanks. Basically, we made significant progress with like our platform to onboard influencers for the projects, and we just like past week we hosted 4 projects for $500,000 worth of tokens. So things looking good on our end, and we, as any, as everyone in the crypto space, anticipating bull market to see the new cycle of like IDOs and launches. But yeah, like regarding the pin side, we see the potential in new forms of investments, like in alternative investments that DePIN provides. Basically, anyone regardless of their economic status, like geographical location and like technical background, they can participate in this emerging trend and basically own part of this infrastructure that will build like the world that we're going to live in the next like 5, 10, 20 years. And the earlier you start, where you like start engaging with these projects, where you start investing in them, the bigger advantage you have and the more profit they're going to make from this. So we're really excited about the landscape of current DePIN applications, and I think we're going to see even more emerge in the next years. And yeah, like for general users, I think the best part is that there's variety of opportunities that the DePIN provides, and depending on your current like state, whether you have some infrastructure, for example, like underutilized computer power or just storage, you can provide it to the like network. Or on other hand, if you need it for your like business or personal life, you can use it at like a fraction of the cost. So I think the landscape is looking really promising, and we're happy to support projects that trying to bring innovation to this niche. And yeah, I think we everyone will benefit from this direction, and really excited that like for example in comparison to meme coins or some other niches in crypto, for example like Telegram mini apps, DePIN really provides value. It's really like something like strong in terms of the long-term vision, and we really happy to support it.
Yeah, definitely, Max. And I believe the essence, one of the major essence of this roundtable space is to have connection built. I believe every of our guests today can get to connect and also have to share resources, see how we could come together and collaborate. That's one of the essence of spaces like this. All right, let me pass the mic to Todd. Todd, I would like to get some insight into some of the where are you guys at in terms of development, in terms of what users should expect within the next few short and long term. What should we expect? Currently, we are in October, and a lot of people are really bullish on a couple of things because of how the general October scene is on the Web3 space. But let's get insight from you on where you are at in terms of development and what users should expect within the next few months.
Sure. It's a really exciting time for us. We've been working on this project since we got a National Science Foundation grant 4 years ago, a couple raises, and we've got to build a great team of about 35 people. And I can tell you our immediate focus is on getting to our mainnet phase 1. As I mentioned, that's going to be in just a couple weeks. So we hope everybody here will check out our autonomous.xyz website, shameless plug, to download the farmer, pledge some space to the network and check it out. You can start farming tokens for free. You don't need anything special to get started. So that is our main goal. And then, of course, the execution environment, which will follow in Q1 of next year, when we're going to roll out the domains. So initially, we'll have an EVM domain where we can deploy, just regular Ethereum smart contracts. We'll have another domain for our auto ID that we're building, which is enabling agents to identify one another so that they can communicate and be cryptographically proven of who they are. And of course, other AI use cases will go on other domains. For the future, some of the things we're looking at are scalability. We're developing sharding for things like parallel processing, data availability and access, optimizing that, targeting speeds, 100 plus megabits per second. This is all about obtaining trust from our users. And by offering these, decentralized and verifiable compute power, we'll have native modular execution for AI and machine learning. And this is really important because when you get into things like large-scale data processing, the public verification really proves that the models are being trained and executed the way they were intended and not manipulated. So these are some things we're going to be working on. We anticipate we're going to have thousands of nodes. There's going to be plenty of storage and compute available, and it can be verified by anyone. And again, this is without the need to trust a central authority. We want to maintain a good price point. We're thinking we're going to be 1,000x cheaper than Ethereum, so it would be very cost efficient. We're certainly looking to get into the storage and computation as the next big trend, which is where we've positioned ourselves specifically in the AI space. And we feel that, we're really uniquely positioned for this, and we'll be in the future to offer this storage and compute at scale. And most of all, it's a sustainable model for incentive compatibility. So the future looks really bright. We've got a lot of great things on the horizon. And again, our mainnet is going to be in just a few weeks. So we encourage everybody to hop on board.
Definitely, Todd. And I can see you guys have a new and super sleek website. You would like to share more insight about that?
Yeah, shout out to our marketing team. Peter, in particular, I think is on this call listening. Did a great job working with our graphic designers and the rest of the marketing team, working with our community team to pull that all together in a very short period of time. We had gone through a few iterations of it, and we landed on what we've got today. And there's going to be more changes coming to Autonomous with a Y, autonomous.xyz soon. And we look forward to, putting more content on there for training. We have the Autonomous Academy where people can learn all about the product. We have the Autonomous Forum. And pretty soon we will be coming out with additional documentation. Currently, the white paper that's on there was still the original vision for the subspace network. But we will be doing some iteration on that. So we're going to be excited to put that out to everyone as well. So that will become available on the website.
All right, Todd. Thanks for sharing more insight about that. Back to you, Anil. Anil, I would like to get some insight about some of the short and long term goals you guys have currently. And currently, I noticed you guys have a mini app. Would you like to dive more into that for us?
Definitely, definitely. The first of all, I would like to introduce our mini app on Telegram. So we have released 3 weeks ago this actually Telegram bot, and we didn't do any marketing campaigns regarding to this. But today we have reached more than 75K users, so which is very glad thing for us. Uh, Also about the long-term goals, our goal with the DAS is scale to DePIN networks globally and make them a core part of how infrastructure and security operates. And also, we are focused on expanding our reach because, as we all know, 724 availability is a very important thing for every DePIN categorized project. And also integrating our solutions with much more different security providers because our aim is to become a hub for any kind of security providers because we can increase our awareness and proficiency anytime, right? Because someone can have much more expertise against you. So we are trying to become a hub for everyone, and also about the cybersecurity market cap and also DePIN market cap, we are aiming to gain much more portion of that because cybersecurity is a very big deal for everyone. as I as I meshed, 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 as as I mentioned,